Okay, and whilst you're all actually clapping, I actually think it's really generous that you guys have been donating to charities in our name. I didn't know you guys were doing that, so I think that's a very wonderful thing to do. So a round of applause for Top Visible for a very generous donation. Okay, so we all want to keep our jobs, hopefully. So what I'm going to focus on in this talk is the customer journey, because we all need to understand how people work through our content, our website, and those marketing channels. And then I'm going to show you some tips on how to improve the way that you report on this so that we keep our budgets, because, as I said, there are some of us in the audience that are going to find the next year quite difficult to trade in. So our budgets are going to be the first ones to get cut, because marketing is seen as a nice to have, but not necessarily the urgent need. I'm going to be tweeting out a link at the end of this talk with a write-up of some of the things that I'm going to be sharing today, as well as the slides. So don't worry too much about writing things down, but on with the show, as they say. So the customer journey, we all know that no matter what industry you're in, with all of your customers, they are going to go through a process in their mind from I don't know who you are to actually giving a damn about what you do and handing over their time or their money. And we all know that there's not a single touch point anymore, is there? Like, that just doesn't work. I wish it was, because my marketing would be so easy. It's like I'm going to do this one thing and then make loads of cash. But in reality, our prospects and customers are going through many touch points and making our job quite difficult to understand what is going on. And I think you've got to start off with a persona, but I've got a bit of an issue with personas, if I'm being totally honest. We've all used them, we've all done them. I've printed them up as A3 boards in the office, and we're like, look everybody, look at our personas. But I think they're a little bit one-dimensional. Here's Anders, he's 31, he lives in Sweden, he likes IKEA. I find it really difficult with these personas to write meaningful content and understand their true needs and wants to get where I need to be. So what happens, and this is me speaking from my own experience, we've done our personas, we did the mosaic profiling, and then marketing did what we wanted to do anyway. And if anybody asked us, we went, oh, personas. We used the personas, and they're like, oh, rightio. And then about 5 years ago, I started doing a bit of work in user experience, and I found that a user experience tool, which is called the empathy map or a customer empathy map, is what was missing really from my personas. Because beyond what do they want, what are their needs, what newspapers do they read, how many people are in the family, you have to really get under the skin of your customers to understand them. So there's quite a lot in here, but I'll go through it quite quickly. The thinking and feeling bit, that's all of the washing machine crap that goes on in your brain. A lot of the stuff that you'll probably type into Google, because Google knows all your secrets. Like, I can type in things like, what is JavaScript React? And not look like an absolute idiot, because Google won't tell my secrets. And when I'm lying awake at night wondering if my children are eating enough vegetables, I don't have to say it out loud. So that thinking and feeling, there's a lot of information in there that we want to understand and then use that to connect with our customers. The hearing, this is my environment. Who is influencing me? Do I listen to podcasts or social media experts or people at work? The saying and do, what's my environment like? And this is where your positioning is going to come into place, because once I start to see products and services like you, and you're pitching against other companies, I've already got a set of assumptions in my head, haven't I? If somebody says, oh, we're a CRM, I'm like, oh, you like Salesforce. So already my perceptions and what's going on in my mind are going to be very different to maybe what you've positioned. And then the say and do bit, this is my actions and what I'm physically doing. And do they stand up to what I've been saying and what I've been thinking and feeling inside of my head? And the key part to this is the language that your customers are using. Now, you've probably heard it in terms of decent copywriting, that you need to have user-centric copy. And that's really hard to do. Like, it's so easy to write a sales page. And as marketeers, we're not all amazing copywriters. I'm actually a pretty shit copywriter. I'm dyslexic, so my spelling is awful. I can't read in capital letters. But I'm really good at a hack, which is called review mining. So if I'm writing about a topic and I'm trying to understand understand what's going on with a customer, I go to Amazon, I go to Reddit, and I go through all of the user-generated content and all of the reviews, and I'm going to find natural language, and I'm going to find certain phrases and keywords that my customers are using, and I'm not going to use the jargon that I am using. So instead of saying things like, oh, here's how to do a user-defined default channel grouping, I'll go in plain English, how do I track my campaigns? Because that's what people are looking for, and that's where you're going to get that really rich information. So we need to start thinking about those personas and building them out with much more detailed psychological points, to put it in a nutshell. And then when we think about the customer journey, we've got the pain and problem aware. So this is no matter what it is that you're going to be doing, and it might take a day for you to go through this decision-making process. It could be an hour, it could be a year, but you've got a problem. So pain aware, I need to buy a new fountain pen. My pen's broken. Or it could be I'm moving house and I don't know anything about mortgages, so I need to research mortgages or something like that. So these are all the issues and a problem that you're trying to solve. And then you've got the solution aware. So when I go through the research stage at this, I then become aware of particular products and services that can actually match that pain and problem. So let's take it as a UX. You've heard of UX and you're like, oh, UX is important, but I have no idea what it is. A solution could be, I could buy a book, I could do a course, I could hire a consultant. So depending on your budgets and your needs, you will pick a particular solution that is going to be better for you, which brings you into product aware. So if you decide, I'm going to go with a book, is it Steve Krug's book? Is it Jakob Nielsen's book? And then you become most aware, you know exactly what you want, and you go and type it into the browser directly and mess up my analytics because my boss says we don't need to do marketing, everybody comes to the website direct. Lies. So what I find interesting when we go through our stages of awareness, at the very, very beginning, they are typically going to be non-branded keywords because you don't know what you don't know yet. So this is all the who, what, whys, and whens. This is all your featured snippets. This is all of your questions and your FAQs. What is user experience? Why is it important? That kind of thing. When you get to the solution and product aware, because you're being exposed to different brands and services, you will then start to get a mix. So best UX book, Steve Krug, or Steve Krug versus Jakob Nielsen. And then when we get to the most aware stage, you know exactly what you want, what it's called from the brand, but you don't start your journey that way. You don't put in GoPro 39.4 Model 1. You get there when you've gone through this process. So thinking about our SEO strategies and our PPC strategies, we have to break it out by the different stages of awareness because it helps to manage the expectations. Because all the stuff at the beginning of the journey isn't really going to convert very well when you look into analytics, and I'll share you some tips on how to improve that. When we think about our keywords, we then start thinking about our content formats, and typically speaking, there are certain content formats that work better at different stages of awareness. So at the very, very beginning, blogs and quizzes and infographics, fabulous, because I'm just doing a little bit of a research. I'm not really ready to give you that much time. As I go a little bit further, I'm really investing in finding a solution to my problem. So I'll read your ebook, I'll watch a webinar, and then as I get right to the end, I might want case studies and technical docs. But there's absolutely no way if you start putting on Twitter, hey, here's a 50-page book, I'm like, I just want to know, like, what is a gherkin or something like that. I'm not necessarily ready for it yet. And then when we start thinking about our marketing channels, same thing applies. You will find, and this isn't gospel by the way, I have put at the bottom, an example of a customer journey. Your customers, depending on the industry that you are in, will have specific channels that work at different stages of awareness. So just because somebody says that Snapchat is cool, does that mean it should work for you? If you're a firm that is a legal firm and you're trying to get new clients, are lawyers on Snapchat? Maybe, maybe not, I don't know. But you would go through your analytics to work out what does this look like. And I'll show you at the end the reports that will tell you what this is. So we've got our personas, but I think we need to beef them up a little bit more and know a little bit more about that user. We need to start thinking about our keywords and our website and our content. And one thing that I find interesting when I've been trying over the years to build out my websites and the URL structure, everything aligned really nicely. So we created something called the consumer cross-stitch model. I've got an ungated PDF of this on the website, so feel free to download it later and have a look at it. But if you have a look at the pain-aware stage, that matches really nicely with the thinking and feeling, because it's like, I've got a problem, how do I fix it? All that washing machine stuff that's going on in your head. The keyword modifiers for that are going to be the what, where, who, why, whens. And then depending on your industry, you'll need to think about, what's that URL? What am I targeting that keyword for? What's the SERP? So do I need to do schema markup because it's an FAQ? Do I need to optimize it for news? Like, what is it for your industry? And again, those SERPs are going to change as you move through the journey. So I'll walk you through a quick example. Pain aware, like, I'm going on holiday, I'm going to Tokyo, looks cool, but I've got ages until I have to actually book it. So at the moment, I just want to know, like, what is it like at the moment in Tokyo? So I'm putting things like, what should I look for in a Tokyo hotel? How to find a great hotel? Why do you need a view from the room? What is the breakfast that you have? Like, what's the hotel in Lost in Translation? Like, I've done that. I'm like, you know, the cool one with the thing, like, but I don't know what it's called yet. I'm just chatting through it. I will optimize my URL for things like hotel in Lost in Translation. If I'm that hotel, I would want that. I'd want everybody that's going, what is it? I think, is it Game of Thrones? Like, they've done really well for tourism, haven't they? Of people going, where's the location? Like in Ireland and Croatia. I would take advantage of that and build it. And when I'm writing this user-centric copy, I'm going to make sure that I'm managing the expectations of that reader and writing for that stage of awareness. As I move through to the solution aware, so I know I want to stay in Tokyo, but am I going to go in an Airbnb? And am I going to go try and live with a friend? Am I going to go to a hostel? Am I going to go to, I don't know, whatever else you can do, a proper hotel? So I'll start playing around with those. And again, the SERP results might be the actual hotels, it might be reviews. So you've got to think about how you're going to mark up that page. And as I'm chatting to my other half about, oh, I've seen some pretty cool hotels here, but I think I'm going to stay at the higher. I've made my decision. Like, out of all of the solutions, I want a hotel, and this is the hotel. So then I'm going to start putting in specific keywords in there to find that answer. And then when I'm absolutely ready, then depending on your industry, I'm a bit cheeky. If I know what I'm going to buy, I might discount code because I always want to see if I can get some money off. And then I might sometimes compare certain brands. Like if I'm pretty much on the fence between two, I might do a comparison. So if we're thinking about our personas, we're thinking about the empathy side of it, we're thinking about the stages of awareness, we're all in with the idea of customer journey's been a good idea, I'm hoping. I'm just going to take you blinking. You're a very quiet crowd, so I'm going to take your blinking as a sign that you're happy. But our job as marketeers is growth, isn't it? That's our entire existence. Grow the company, retain the business, serve our customers, keep me in business. That is our number one priority. And if we don't do that, we're gone. Like, the budget is just disappearing. Now, in order for us to do any form of attribution, you have to have goals set up in your analytics platform. And I have taught thousands of people, and I've done hundreds of audits, and about 40% have no goals whatsoever, which I find astonishing, especially when they're spending money on paid search. And they're like, oh, what's working? I'm like, I haven't got a Scooby-Doo, because you've just got money going in and no goals. And somebody bought something, but I can't tie it to any marketing if you don't have any goals. And the other problem we have is if they do have goals, they only have one big fat macro goal. And you should be looking at micro conversions as well as macro conversions, because that customer journey of people slowly giving more shits about what you do is a way for you to understand what is your conversion funnel from starting on your website to doing what you wanted them to do. Now, you can have 20 goals per view in Google Analytics. 20. And most of the time I see one or maybe two, and you're like, guys, you can do better than that. So hypothetical, let's say you are a company and you're selling a particular software as a service. If you're spending lots of time and money on case studies, then I would want to create a goal that says, yes, they are reading my case studies. A resource for this, Dana de Tomaso did an excellent talk on her website Kickpoint, where she was using custom dimensions and metrics to calculate how long people were actually on a page so they could understand what was happening. I'd want to have a goal set up if somebody watched a video. Videos are expensive. Even though it's cheaper to do things now, I have to turn around to my boss and say, this video converts at this percent and this is what it contributes overall to the strategy. Otherwise, I'm not going to get my budget signed off. Warm, fuzzy feelings don't get budgets signed off. You've all watched Dragon's Den, like Shark Tank? Never do they just go, I'm sold on the why of the business. They're like, no, what's your conversion rate? What's your net profit? Like, they want the numbers. And then you've got other things like registering for a webinar, listening to podcasts, downloaded your white paper, bought the damn product. But you've got 20 goals that you can have. Now, the reason why this is interesting is because when you're in analytics, you can look at all goals, but then you also have the option to drill down into individual goals and see what people are doing, or maybe what they're not doing, so you can see what strategies are working for you. Now, a way for you to understand what people are doing on your website, because you've got some goals set up. Content groupings in Google Analytics, I think, are massively underused. Does anybody use content groupings? Like a few of you? Oh, well done at the back. They should be used. They're free. It doesn't take a lot of coding, but it's a way of kind of grouping all of your website pages under one nice, neat umbrella. And instead of looking at pages like this, because I hate websites like this, you're like, oh, look, here's all of my content. And for this month, there's 52,505 pages. And my boss is going, how many people read the blog, Jill? Oh, crap, I'm going to have to go through and manually find the URLs for the blog. Was our service pages doing good this year? Like, what's happening over there? Like, which one? Like, oh my God, are you going to manually go through this and export it and do some magic with Excel? Like, if anybody can do anything in Excel, by the way, well done. Like, it drives me mad and makes me drink more gin than I probably should, because it's hard work. Whereas content groupings, when you have them set up, this is in the Google Analytics demo account, and you click on none, that just means none have been selected. And they have 3 in here. They've got one for brand, one for product, and one for clothing. And when I click on one of them, all of my content gets sucked up into these nice little umbrellas. So I can say to my boss, the blog had 2,500 page views from this many people, and this is the conversion rate. And if I click on those links, it's going to go in and show me the pages that are within that particular group. Saves me loads of time. You only have to do it once, and because it's analytics, and analytics is a computer program, it only works the day that you create them. The hard part is just working out what your URL structure is. But let's be honest, you all know your website better than anybody, don't you? Like, it's like a baby. Like, you know your websites. If anybody says it's a mess, it's like saying you've got an ugly baby. You want to punch them in the face. It's not nice. Now, the way that you can create these content groupings, you've got rule set. So this is saying if the page contains /services, it's a service page. You've got content via extraction. So if you have a complicated e-commerce site, you're going to have to use regex to say if the page * shirts, then it's a shirt page. And then some people like to put tracking code on, but I don't see many people do that, so I'll ignore that. But here's one I made earlier. You go into your view settings, so you have to do this at each view level. And you will say that it's called, what have I put in here? I can't see over there. About us, if the page contains or exactly matches contact and or this page, dump it in that particular folder. Nice and easy. So the time is probably anywhere between half an hour and 2 hours for me to sit down and work out on an Excel sheet, like what are all the website URLs and what am I going to call them. And this bit takes like 15 minutes to do. Like, it's not difficult. Because you can have 5 per view. My suggestion is to always have one for your website navigation. So here's my home page, my about page, my service pages, that kind of thing. Then I like to have one for products. So this is Android, this is Google, this is YouTube. Then I like doing it by brands, probably the same thing, isn't it? You know what I mean? But I also like doing it by stages of awareness and by content type. Now, sometimes you can do something called custom dimensions and metrics, which is a bit more complicated, where you can say who wrote this page, how many words words were on the page, but if I can't quite get the budget, I'll say if the page contains this, it's a webinar. If the page contains this, it's a case study. So it's a way for me to kind of navigate around that. But things that you can do with it, which I think is super, as well as going into your behaviour all pages report and making your life easier, you can add them as secondary dimensions to your reports. So I can start going into my acquisition report and add a secondary dimension from one of my content groupings to understand, well, the case studies. Like, where did the traffic come from the case studies? Or the brands, how old are the people and what are the devices and what's happening? And I will start to use this content to then build segments. If I've got to get more people at a webinar, hypothetically, then I can build segments using those content groupings of people that have used those page views, and then go into audience acquisition and find out, well, where did they come from and who are they on what device? And then when I'm going to do my marketing plan, go, right, we're going after 25 to 35-year-old people in Copenhagen on this device at this time of day, and I'm using that data to get way more insights, which is super cool. Who gets the credit? So we know that with our marketing, unfortunately, because there are 7 attribution models in Google Analytics, 7. And I have a really bad joke for you. It's like you're a marketeer, that you're Snow White, and these are, the attribution models are dwarves, and you're just trying to find the one that makes you happy. And that's it. Like, it didn't go down well in some places where I've said that joke. But if this is a typical path to purchase, so this is me at the moment. I'm on the train, I'm bored, and I see an Instagram post. I'm like, hey, that bag looks cool. All these weird face masks that you can take off with magnets. I'm like, weird. Go on the website, and then I come off because, you know, I'm at the station and I've got to go to my office. And then they're clever. They put a cookie and they retarget me. So when it's lunchtime and I'm eating my sandwich, I'm like, oh, look, there's the weird face mask. You should look at it. It's like a magnet. It's really weird. And I'm like, oh, I'm not sure if I want to buy it right now. But I'll sign up to your newsletter. And then you send me a newsletter with an offer, and I'm like, oh, I might buy it. And then the next day I go into my browser, type in the URL, and I'm done. The newsletter would get 100% of the credit for that sale, because in the acquisition reports, 100% of the credit last non-direct channel. So I see people going into their acquisition reports and then going, yeah, paid social, bye, your budget's gone, get rid of the agency, it doesn't do anything. When it did. You have these customer journeys. Your channels do the same thing. You've got some at the beginning that are exposers, get people into the brand. It's not their job to convert. They're just to get the wheel moving. Then you've got some that are going to start to close the deal. And then you've got channels that are going to actually get people over the line. So there's a report in Google Analytics. If you go below conversions, it's like a basement, nobody ever goes down there. There's a report called assisted conversions. So when you're reporting on your marketing, you should be going into acquisition and saying, Instagram brought in this many people, but the conversion rate looks really shit. But when I go into the assisted conversions report, oh, look, it assisted in 500 sales. And if we turn this off, all the sales will disappear. So you have to balance that scorecard. Other things that you can do that I find interesting is you can change the primary dimension at the top and put in landing page URL, and it will show you the assisted conversions by page, because the value of your pages, what was the last page that got them to sell. So I've got bloggers that are like, we look really bad. I'm like, no, you're not. You're actually assisting. It's doing really well. And then you've got your top conversion path, which is going to tell you what that customer journey is for you, and you can change that URL to landing pages as well. Instead of guessing what you think your customer journey is, this report is going to give you that information. So really quickly for my last few minutes, because I'm running out of time, reports, like this is literally my life. I'll build loads of reports. It's really painful. Send it to clients, send it to my boss, and they're like, meh. It's really just a way for marketing to tangibilize what we do, but we're not really going to read it. So it's our job to make things a little bit clearer. So if you're not using Google Data Studio, start using it, because you can build a template and then you're done. You can just apply it and it works. And what I've done on this is the workaround for your content groupings, because I do love a content grouping. They only work the day that you create them. But if you use something called case statements, it will apply it to historical data, and it works on the same rules. If you've done the homework of what your content grouping should be, you can just copy this over into Data Studio. So you'll say things like, when the page is this, then it's a pane aware. If the page is that, it's not. So when I look at the previous example, this was for an organic report. So we're like, this is all the traffic you got from organic. Pane aware is at the bottom is really bad. And they were writing loads of content around the who, what, where, and whens. So I'm like, well, that's clearly not working for you. So using this theory of our case statements, I started looking at other ways that I could be using case statements. So we did a deep crawl on their website, and a bit like the content that you get, you're like, oh my God, that's a long list of Excel. Where do I even start? We applied case statements to the URLs from the crawl and said, right, this is your pane aware. And look how bad it is. This is the section of the website that you need to fix first, and then move on to the other parts of the website. So there's loads of stuff about this. I've written this up in quite a bit of detail on our blog, so go away and do that. Last point on your conversions as well. If you've got your micro and your macro conversions, I like to heat map it so it looks a little bit like this. So an idiot can look at it and go, I've blurred out the sources so you can't see whose data it was. You can say, oh, Facebook's really good at getting them to like read a case study, and the newsletter's really good at getting them to watch a webinar, and PPC's really good at getting them to do X, Y, and Z. So it's going to help manage the expectations of what your marketing channels are doing and what that conversion rate looks as you work through it. And then when you get really into this, you can start using Data Studio with Google Sheets to pull in assisted conversions, because unfortunately assisted conversions are not available in Data Studio. So you need to use the Google add-on, Google Analytics add-on in Google Sheets, and I've got the instructions on how to do that on our blog post. So I can say to my boss, here's all my marketing channels across the customer journey, here's how they converted, and then at the bottom, please keep my job and don't sack anybody because they're all assisting in some way or another. So I hope that was good and you enjoyed it. That went really quickly, actually. But thank you very much for having me.